Hello, Onur Kara, with me today from New York. You're a data science, quantum computing expert, and you're the founder of a startup called Neo Qortex with a Q, where you harness the power of quantum computing for real-world application, ranging to biotech to material discovery. I am very excited to see where our conversation goes today and what experience looks like. But first of all, thank you so much for being with me today, taking the time. Please introduce yourself
Well,
to the
first, thank
audience.
you. Thank you for having me. I want to point out that you astutely pointed out that we have the Q in our name, and it's actually a prerequisite of a quantum company. So now you know that we're legitimate. We know we thought far ahead to put the Q in our name.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Onur Kara. I'm a co-founder and CTO of Neo Qortex. We are a quantum computing software and algorithms company focusing on quantum chemistry software at the moment for applications in pharmaceutical drug discovery, and materials discovery and research. We are an AI enhanced quantum computing company, meaning we have a hybrid quantum classical workflow. We're based out of College Park, Maryland. We're part of the Quantum Startup Foundry, which is it's an initiative, the quantum capital of the world is what essentially that they're aiming for. So we're affiliated with the University of Maryland, and we're headquartered out of there. As for me, my background, I did my undergraduate in New Jersey at Rutgers University in biochemistry and chemistry. Then I started some postgraduate studies at Columbia in applied mathematics and physics while working as a research coordinator at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, actually in an immunohistochemistry lab, something very much unrelated to what I'm doing. But it's something that I was interested at the time. While at Columbia, I was actually also working as a visiting researcher in a synthetic organic chemistry lab. And I then started my graduate studies, my PhD studies at the University of Maryland, initially in an experimental magnetohydrodynamics lab. Then I switched over to a theory group doing statistical mechanics. And that's actually where I met my co-founder, Teddy. And I started my first startup in 2018 doing essentially machine learning and natural language processing for context-driven recommendation engines, which is essentially the company naturally evolved into a ad tech and marketing tech company because we were servicing digital news outlets. And basically what the way that they would make some money is showing through ad impressions and getting clicks. Yeah. So I did that for some time, for approximately 6 years, as initially a co-founder and head of data science. And then I left the company, and stayed on as an advisor for 2 years, I guess. And during that time, I had another startup that wasn't as successful. It was a cool product. It was in real estate tech. It was essentially another way of searching via contextual search, images, unlabeled images in real estate. And so, for example, for a realtor who uploads a bunch of images and somebody wants to search over those images in a very kind of focused manner, such as mid-century modern living room in a Baroque style home that's well lit in the afternoon. And they don't want to do any of this labeling themselves and whatnot. So we had a pretty cool prototype, and ultimately it didn't, that one didn't pan out. But most recently, my co-founder, as I mentioned, Teddy, he approached me about Neo Cortex, and the quantum computing space is something that I had been very interested in since graduate school. I had taken a couple of classes in quantum computing, and at the time, back in 2016, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I just don't think it's a good time to get into it yet. It was a very novel field as far as application went. And it didn't make much sense from a business standpoint to pursue it, at least not for me at the time. And well, now here we are. We have a product, we have a software suite, and we have various collaborations with some cool organizations such as NASA, and we're in talks with some other large organizations. So it's been good. We're 1 year old actually this month.
And we already said you are one of the founders with your co-founder Teddy. What's your role in the organization? What's Teddy's role?
Yeah, so I'm the CTO. I manage a lot of our data projects and our machine learning based projects. So just general product management and product development kind of initiatives that we have. Teddy is leading the theory development and algorithm development branch of the company, which is a major component. Being a software and algorithms company, the algorithm development is of utmost importance. And then we have others at the company as well. We have three quantum computing software engineers, Naman, Pranavi, and Rishwi. They are fantastic as well. Then we have an AI engineer, Punya. We have a lead software developer, Pedro, out of Argentina. And then we have a biophysicist, Tejaswi, and we have a computational chemist, Ethan. And then we have a couple of advisors, one on the quantum chemistry side, Hector, one from the business development side, Eden, and then we have a quantum computing expert, Alex. So that's our entire operation.
Wow, cool. You were able to bring together such a team in just 1 year. That is remarkable.
Team building is something I take a lot of pride in. So you asked my responsibilities. That is also a part of a major part of my responsibilities, as is business development, actually. So when you're in a startup, you asked
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when you're at a startup, you have a lot of responsibilities. You wear
Yes.
many, many hats. So now it's much more structured for me. The first time around, the first startup, I mean, it was a lot more hectic, mostly because I was unaware of what it meant to start a company. I was coming out of graduate school. So my job as a data scientist was algorithm development, like officially, but that is not what, the job description did not cover everything that I had to do. I mean, we had one other person who had some technical expertise. He was a data architect, and he was able to put together these databases that I needed in order to do what I needed to do. However, so other than the algorithm development, I was essentially a full stack developer. I deployed the whole system I built the whole system from scratch, and I did it in a way that was not scalable, right? So I built a system and I deployed it. So it was serviceable to two clients, but not scalable beyond that because of the way that I was doing that, the way that I was setting up the services. It took about a year after finding out we did this external code audit that we needed to refactor my code. And it took about a year to refactor all that code. So that is like one of the major lessons that you kind of learn when you start something early and you don't know what you're doing. It's like you'll learn a lot, but you also learn kind of, if I do this again, like what not to do and how not to do things.
Yes.
And then, you need to get certain people for certain things. You need to trust individuals to accomplish tasks that you would maybe typically do yourself. There's a lot.
Yes, yes. I think about this thing about trusting a lot. I think we were joking about it before. Imagine the classic micromanaging a client, right? I think about this a lot. I'm a graphic designer. I've been doing this for 15 years. You can imagine. And the question that I always ask myself is, why do people not just hire people that they value, whose opinion they value, and whose work they trust? And I think that's probably, in team building, is the most important thing, and it's probably the most important thing. Once you found the right person, trusting them and creating an environment in which they can grow and learn and apply their expertise. So I'm happy you brought that up. It's something that is on my mind often. Trust is something that's on my mind. Trust in teams specifically something that's on my mind often.
It's in fact that whole, team building and trust component is one of the things I think I'm most proud of coming out of my first startup. I was very proud of this internship programs that I'd run. And I would do mentoring to students that were either graduate students or undergrads and whatnot, and really just skill building for them. I mean, I really did these programs for them because it's hard to really contribute too much in a short span to a startup that's really just trying to pump out products, and you're just kind of coming in for a few months. But I try to design these things that would be a good experience for them, and I built really good relationships with these students. So two of my these people that I worked with, years ago, came to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about what my next steps are for my career. I'm interested in kind of what you're doing. Can I contribute?" So now there's two people that I didn't name as part of our team because they're unofficial, but two of them just came back to me and said, "Hey, can we contribute?" And they're working on projects with us as well, just as external contributors, independent contributors, because of that strong relationship and as overall initially team building that you know I really focused on. I think it's extremely valuable, and like I said, the overall like the internship program that I ran, I'm very, very proud of it.
So I think this answers some of the questions that I want to ask you later. But first, I need to ask you this. Why didn't you just get yourself a job? Why are you studying startup after startup after startup? Like, what is driving you?
I don't that's an excellent question. I think if I had started with a regular job, maybe it would have been I would have stayed with it. But I'll tell you in retrospect, because I did start working for a large company after my first startup, and I couldn't do it. I very much enjoy the pace, at least when it comes to you have an objective and you want to get something done. You won't have a bunch of red tape thrown in your way. And you won't have a bunch of roadblocks that are kind of hindering you from achieving what you know is the best thing to do. So, I was hired as a senior data scientist at a large company, and they had essentially told me that they would be hiring me to modernize their data science and machine learning capabilities. A lot of what was happening was any suggestion I would make would kind of just be bulldozed and like, okay, but yeah, but we do it this way. So let's see if we can adapt what you're saying, but I'm like, we talked about, modernization and appreciating the person who you're bringing in and their suggestions. And it was just a constant number of roadblocks because like, oh, we do it this way, so we have to continue doing it this way for now. We need approvals. This might take a few months, so we'll just keep doing it, the inefficient way. I could never, again, I think I was probably spoiled from starting as a startup at first, right? Like, think had I not done that, then it might be easier. Maybe I would have stayed in. I don't know. It's hard to say. I just know that getting a job is not for me.
Interesting. And of course, there's a price to pay, right? If you get into a job, there's all this red tape. You're not allowed to express your full potential, or it will take you like years that you can compress into days, weeks, or months into your own startup company. But what do you think is the price that you're paying in order to have that freedom in your in your startup?
Well, if you're starting a company from scratch, there's a lot, right, that you have to worry about. It's high risk, right? If you're a pre-revenue, pre-product company, I mean, you are building hopefully what will one day be, a skyscraper from the ground up, from the foundation. I mean, you got to dig out the entire, you got to dig into the ground, pour the concrete, and then get your contractors, get your builders, get everything, your architects, and then start going up. You have to do everything from the ground floor, and it is challenging. So the main word I would say there is uncertainty. The uncertainty is the most difficult thing that you have to become comfortable with, because it is always there. I mean, it's always there in life in general, but when you're starting a company or a startup, that is, the overarching kind of constant that you're dealing with, because a few wrong moves and that could spell the end of your company. And you have to understand like when to pivot, when to, do I need to pivot, right? Like, so, we've been building something for this amount of time, and maybe that was your original idea. And I say that because this is actually what happened in my first company. You think you have a great idea and you build it, before doing any market analysis and finding out if there's a product market fit. And then you bring it to market, you bring it to the companies that would use it. And they're like, this is cute, but how are we going to monetize this? And, you're like, I don't know. Here's a tool. It works. But you monetize it. No. How do we make money from this thing? And, that happened at my first company. I got very lucky. I was able to kind of repackage the technology that I had built into another product. And then, it happened by chance, actually. So I'll tell you exactly what it was. Initially, the product that we were building is something that me and my co-founder thought was really cool, which was a tool that given a news article and given their corpus, which is all of the articles in their database. So given some article at some time that you're reading, can you build, let's say, the 10 most relevant articles that build that story? So you get more context into, how did I arrive at this point? Right. And we thought it was a wonderful research tool because, this was right after the 2016 election, and both of us had, you know, been don't know much about politics. So every time you read an article, you're like, okay, I understand what this article is saying, but is it out of context? Like, what led to this point? So we built this tool that would give you a timeline that builds you towards the current story that you're reading. We brought it to a major conference. So this took approximately 4 months to build, 5 months to build. And I was under the impression that we had 1 year of runway. So we build this thing, we bring it to ONA, the Online News Agency Association conference. All the big outlets are there, Fox, MSNBC, all the big companies. We show them this, like, here, this is a tool that you can just put onto any article and then researchers or anybody will love it because they can get more information. And the exact response was, oh, this is, like I said, this is cute, but what do we do with this? We come back to New York, and my CEO was like, hey, I need you to build something. I was like, what do you mean build something? We built something. Nobody wanted it. So let's figure out what to do next. And he's like, no, I mean, like, we have 3 months of runway left. I was like, what do you mean? So you said we had, 12 months. He's like, no, whatever happened, it happened. And
Yeah.
so one night I was on Facebook and I clicked into a Huffington article post, and I saw that there were a bunch of words that's kind of like that look like what are in natural language processing referred to as like entities, namely like proper nouns, person, place, or thing, or meaningful topic, but mostly entities. So they were using some type of topic modeling where they would underline just in an automated fashion phrases, and it looked messy. Number one, because there was like partial parts of like sentences that were like the word for the, and then maybe another word. So something that was not of substance, the actual topic. So it would be this misalignment was there. But also, if you clicked into the topic, you'd arrive on what's called a topic page, which essentially was just a bunch of loosely connected news articles. So it's not like you're not getting any more information. You're just getting maybe some keywords and some potentially related articles. And I thought to myself, this could be done better. And I thought to myself, well, I could definitely use this context driven. I can build a context driven search using the contextual relations in the timelines that we were building. I can use that already. All I need to do now is, so the idea was, let me just perform some clean named entity recognition and named entity disambiguation, where you find all the unique instances of a particular entity in an article. You toss all of the duplicates, and then when you hover over, the cleaned entity, you get the three most relevant articles in the corpus for that entity. So contextually, based on what that article is about, and then also, so you get the three in a little pop up box, three articles, and the moneymaker, which was a little ad box on top. So we were adding value for these companies by providing an ad impression for each hover, which was increasing the number of impressions significantly. And we were doing it in a cookie-free manner, which at the time was super, super hot, and of interest to everybody because of privacy concerns and all this stuff. But yeah, that's something that happened. After that, we did well.
That's a very good story. What a cool product. Hearing about the people stories and these like serendipitous events that lead to discoveries that then end up like completely turning around the destiny of a project is always interesting to hear.
And then ChatGPT came, and it pretty much made all the stuff that I built obsolete.
Yeah.
Because we were building language models in house. We were doing all this natural language processing and machine learning before it was commercial, fully commercial. Uh, before it was ML as a product, right? ML as a service, what are you going to call it?
So we've been talking about how proud you are of the amazing team that you've built at Neo Qortex in such a short amount of time. Is there anything else that you would say has been your biggest achievement for Neo Qortex and maybe even in your career?
So at Neo Qortex, we have been able to, through our very hard work on our algorithms, establish relationships with some of the most prominent and most talented researchers in the world. Um, and I'm extremely proud of our team for being able to do that. I'm very humbled when I show our product to large pharmaceutical companies or to potential investors, the feedback that we get, the excitement actually that our product, um, that it brings into people's eyes at times. You can tell the interest. You can tell that they're engaged in what you're saying and what you're offering. Overall, I'm just extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. From building a product, we have a software suite, that people can use, and that's going into beta testing now, to these research projects that we'll be publishing with major organizations in the coming months. So that's what I would say is what I'm most proud of at Neo Qortex, of what we've been able to achieve in general. It's been really wonderful.
How do you get a client as NASA?
So yeah, so
Can
LinkedIn
you even
spam
can you even talk about it, or the Men in
for sure,
Blacks are going to
for
kidnap us?
sure. I mean, I think these skills that you should be able to build are as a startup founder are extremely valuable, and I think you would agree. Given our how we connected. So I would just look over profiles on LinkedIn. So I was doing this product um, research uh, project that I was working on, and I was looking for end users of quantum chemistry software. So I was just spamming like people asking general questions about what they'd like to see in a product and this and that. And then it turned into a little after maybe 40 or 50 of just those types of calls. I started kind of broadening the scope of the calls to where we were considering hiring people, but we're also looking for like industry collaborators. So through one of these calls, I met someone who's a wonderful, now I consider him a dear friend. We talked about his background and materials research and his time at NASA, and he moved to New Jersey. And I said, "Hey, why don't we grab lunch sometime? Grab lunch." And he's like, "I have people at NASA that I think you should talk to." And he goes, "I don't know, if they have bandwidth for additional projects or if it'll work out, but I'd be happy to make an introduction." So we went into in this NASA call and with a pitch of our projects, and they really liked it. And now we are working on a number of projects together with.
How did it feel to pitch to NASA?
We were nervous. I think it's the same. I think you get the same type of nerves any introduction call. You don't know how the companies are going to feel. You don't know what the response is going to be to what you're offering. You don't know if they've seen exactly that already, and they're just like, whatever. I don't care about this. And you have to kind of be prepared for that. You have to also be prepared for different cultures and how so the NASA thing is one thing, right? It's here in the States, but we've been having some discussions with some large organizations over in Europe and Germany, and the way that they show interest is different. You don't know exactly whether or not they want to move forward until you get an email saying, "Okay."
You are processed, right? It's not like talking directly to a founder. You are processed by their bureaucracy, right?
Yeah, it's different, and you have to be prepared for all possible kind of interaction modes, right? Because they're going to vary, and you have to prepare yourself for all types of interaction feedback and interest. Because again, people not everyone's going to really care, and that's okay. So getting okay with that being okay is a challenge because as a founder, you think what I'm doing is cool, so I think you should think it's cool too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's probably most of it. If you don't think it's cool and important, how is anybody else supposed to care, right? Is there anything coming up, any milestones in sight for Neo Cortex? Something you're working towards?
Essentially, we're working on what is quantum native coarse graining, which is just scaling up using the principles of quantum mechanics to larger and larger systems without losing accuracy that you tend to lose in classical modes of computation. And we are now transition to a great milestone would be having a recurring revenue stream, getting a contract signed with a discussion we're having now with medium to large size organizations that will start paying for a product, because I would say that is probably for us in particular in deep tech the most challenging part of you build something. All right, now you got to get someone to pay for it. We have lots of research interest, we have beta testers. Now it's the part where um, you want that validation, and that is a major milestone for us, and we're in discussions with a few organizations to make that happen. And that is that's the next thing that we're looking for, is to get this well, first get a few more things implemented within our software suite, so that milestone, but then ultimately get paid users through large organizations.
How is the brother now? Is it like this coming customers that you're talking about? Will you be selling them a custom solution made tailored to their needs, or is the product
So
like
both.
stable?
Both. So we have a stable software as a service dashboard, and TUI, so a terminal user interface as well as a graphical user interface, depending on who wants to, what type of user is using the platform. And there's other, there's other components that you can add to each of within the product, right? But also there are a number of companies, at least in the quantum computing space, that have really stuck to a strict software licensing business model, and that tends not to be very lucrative. As a matter of fact, you have a number of like competitors in the classical hardware software space that have extremely powerful algorithms, extremely highly optimized algorithms that have not been able to generate more than between $4 and $10 million a year in revenue, although they've been around and they are highly trusted by academic institutions and so on and so forth. Whereas you have other companies that they have a software suite like we do, and then they'll offer services on top of those, like you mentioned, custom solution. And there's also other ways of kind of playing with that, where you have a custom solution for a particular project on top of your platform, but you can also, maybe in the pharma space, for example, have some type of rev share based on IP that's generated during this relationship. So it's somewhat like a consultancy on top of your product. So that's what we're doing.
Interesting. So would you say that all your like the company is sales driven right now? Do you do any marketing, or are you like totally focused on sales?
So no marketing, no marketing yet. We will. We have so our advisor Eran, he's an executive at Sanofi, the large pharmaceutical company. He's an expert in decision science and marketing. So we have yet to focus too much on that. It's been more customer discovery and outreach so far, and that's what I've been spending a lot of my time on. And it's again, it's gone well. It looks like we're getting very close to finalizing a few partners in that space. And I actually want to add to the challenging part, the milestone actually. The other major milestone that we're looking to do is close our pre-seed round, and that's also it's challenging. We've had tons of calls with VCs, lots of interest, like lots and lots of interest. It's just getting the numbers right, getting the timing for these negotiations in place, and that's something that's very new to me. On either of my startups before this, I was not involved at all in those discussions, and now I'm very much involved in them. And it's a whole new skill set. It's very, very unique type of skills that you need to build for one, identifying the VCs that you should be talking to. Which of those that you've met that are in your space are not that are worth cultivating, but you can't build relationships with everybody, right? Like you have to really start picking and choosing, continue on with, right? Like you have to do some type of like risk reward analysis in your mind, learn how to do that. And it's something that's quite different. It is challenging, especially if you haven't done it before.
Can you share how much you're looking to raise in this pre-seed round?
Sure, we're looking to raise 2 million for our pre-seed.
And how did you make it? Oh yeah, go ahead.
We've raised 500,000 in a friends and family round over the summer, and yeah, so that's what we're going.
That would have been my next question. How did you make it this far? But friends and family round can get you far. Yeah, it's something that a lot of founders don't realize. So yeah, that's very interesting. And it sounds like you got it very far, and you already have client revenue, right?
So we still do not have client revenue. That's as I mentioned with the first milestone. We have some advanced talks to get some paid research, and it looks like it'll happen soon. I just don't want to say, a couple of publicly traded companies, so I don't want to say anything. And some smaller companies until we're finalized. I don't want to announce.
Yeah, sure. All right. So back to my question about you. You said you're not into marketing yet. It's something you're looking to start sometime in the near future after the pre-seed, after a successful pre-seed round. But I'm looking at your website. It's clear to me you've been working with designers. We were talking about before starting the recording, and you've been talking with designers in the past. And brand, it's something that you are interested in yourself. So I would like to hear. Neo Qortex is a young company, so you can tell me about Neo Qortex, but even in your previous experience, what has been the role of brand design and creative into the success or unsuccess of your previous company?
I mean, so like as far as things that I've been involved in. So my first company, we had to think a lot about like product placement. Sometimes, so there were different types of products that we had. As far as we had this, highlighting these entities, in some way. Was it underlined? Was it highlighted? What would be the color scheme of the highlight, for example? Like those were the kind of things that like I would have never thought of actually, or really appreciated much, because now I'm aware that there's this whole, theory of colors and psychology behind why you add a particular color for a particular task, or like a font. I think I mentioned that earlier as well, like a font transition. Like why does that exist? Like, I learned that if there is a font transition, it should be meaningful. You shouldn't just do things at random. And that's why, like, with our webpage now, which we're getting, redone, we're working with a designer.
Well, let's give him a shout out.
It's
Yeah, please.
otherworldly. Yeah. And he's been awesome.
Is he from New York? Are you working with
No,
a local?
he's in Baltimore.
Okay.
Yeah. He's in Baltimore, so Maryland. So I mean, everyone except for myself, our entire ecosystem is in Maryland, basically. And yeah, he's actually somebody that so his name is Sean. He's somebody that my co-founder knew and trusted. So, that relationship is how we got connected, and we decided to move forward with it. And he's been fantastic to date. I mean, it's been a very good
What
experience.
what have you engaged him in so far?
So, we had a couple of calls. He wanted to understand what our vision was for how we're trying to portray ourselves. Obviously, he wanted to get an idea of the products and services that we would have available. Because as you said, I think you've seen our page. There's not much there. Initially, the idea there was to have a landing page for some type of legitimacy. But now that we can offer services, we want to make it clear and we want to make it intuitive. And that's kind of the direction that we gave. And our interactions have been mainly around those topics. Been following his progress on the design board that he uses. It's not Figma. It's, I forget the name now. Framer. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much how we've been interacting. He'll leave a message, and we'll go through it or respond as needed.
What's the most value that you think you're getting out of the relationship with your designer?
I think it's extremely important to be able to service or to provide for those who are interested in your services a meaningful experience when when they're seeking out information for your company, and an intuitive way of getting to that information, right? And that's what we kind of really emphasized, and that's what he's doing. As far as, we want the user experience to feel natural. That's like the word that we're looking for, right? Like something should be natural. It should be intuitive. It should, of course, I mean, you want things that are aesthetically pleasing, but they should make sense, right? It should make sense in the context of what you're trying to provide. Um, and, uh, you know, I believe he has a really good eye for design as well, and understanding of kind of the psychology behind what we are providing, or the psychology of those that would like to use our service. And I think for design people, that's something that they consider very much so, the psychology of the user.
So you work with him closely?
It's a pretty engaged kind of relationship. He makes an effort, which I think is very important, by the way, to not be kind of siloed and just kind of put something together and be like, here it is. It's an iterative process, and we are in the loop.
And how has he earned your trust and respect and into the relationship?
So, I mean, in our initial calls, he very much focused on what we're looking for and what we're doing. Like, so what is it that you're doing, and what are you looking for? He would throw in some insight into what he thought, but he was very reserved about that, initially, because he wanted to understand like what we want. And then, I very much appreciate his interpretation of what we say, and what we showed him as well. Like, oh, here's a competitor page that we somewhat like, but there's this portion here that doesn't really make sense, right? Or here's like a non-competitor in an adjacent field, but we really like this kind of layout. So could we merge these things, and how do you see that coming together? And it's, or can you see that coming together? And that's the kind of stuff that I enjoy going back and forth about.
When you started the company, did you have already, like, did you you probably expected that there will be some branding and design related expenses in your first year as a company, but did you plan for it? Did you have a budget for it, or did you kind of, tested the waters and try, of course, to make the best of the funds that you had available?
For marketing?
Yeah, for the work that you did with other work.
Oh, so otherworldly? No, that was we budgeted that. We knew how much money we had for a runway, and we decided that moving forward with this, even though we're early stage and funding is tight, we thought it was in our best interest to move. So it was obviously budgeted.
Okay. It's funny you say obviously, because in my experience, it's not obvious at all to most founders, especially early on, especially very early on. And my personal opinion is that there are some companies that do not need to invest in brand design and creative in such an early stage. Of course, it's so every situation is so unique. I would never make a blanket statement about it.
No, I think you're absolutely right. This is actually a discussion that I had with my co-founder when he hired somebody for the pitch deck. I was like, I don't know if we. I was like, and this is like the first month of our company. I was like, I don't know, companies know, or venture capital VCs know that, you know, that we're very early. They know that we're not design people and that we have an idea and that we're just going to put it out there. But, we move forward with that as well. Um, you know, I think this one made more sense because of the fact that we're nearing productionalization and commercialization fully now. We want those that want our product to be able to get there, get to our page, access their services, understand what services we provide, and what differentiates us.
Yeah, it's a big trust signal that you cannot avoid when you're talking directly to customers.
Yeah, yeah. And like right now, I just looked at my framer. And, it's coming along nicely.
Yeah, cool. When is the new website launching?
Oh, let me tell you. I can tell you because he has it on the timeline. Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
We said it should be end of this month. There should be a the first draft should be complete. Then
wow,
we'll see. So
exciting.
yeah, so we haven't we had a rather like aggressive, and that's like the name of what was the name of the project here?
Yeah,
Ambitious. Yeah, by end of the month.
cool, exciting. May I ask if you can if you don't want to share about the investment so far? Like you're planning to raise capital, so you're probably part of it. It's already allocated towards branding, marketing. Can you share what percentage of your yearly budget are you looking to invest in that function, and what figure would that amount to?
I can't answer that honestly because I'm not sure. I guess that's a discussion that we'll need to have with our business development and marketing advisor, he's an expert in this space, and then we will have better ideas as to what campaigns we'll start running, what costs that we have in order to budget. So what the budget will look like for those campaigns. Um, I'm
Maybe you have insights from your previous experiences as to how you budgeted for design, branding, marketing expenses.
not not percentage wise, because I was not involved in the.
Yeah, even anecdotally, it would very insightful for me to hear.
I mean, I think we're looking probably at a couple of thousand per project. But again, I can't anticipate um, what those campaigns will look like and the duration, right? Because you have to think of duration. You have to
Right.
think of what modes the company is going to um, be doing this type of work. We're also working with we're trying to understand our market better as well. We're working with a number of graduate students out of the University of Maryland that are doing like market analysis for us for their capstone project. All of this stuff will help us. Well, I know this is not a good answer for now, but later down the line, be able to give you a better answer with actual meaningful numbers.
It's fine. I was curious if you had ever had like a framework in the way you thought about investment in creative. But yeah, I completely understand.
I mean, I had another small project. It's a company that we never. There was just a bunch of friends of mine that got together. We developed this wine app, um, and the design. So not the marketing portion, but the design, and working with designers. We worked with 3 different designers, 3 iterations of the same product before, and we spent upwards of probably $20,000 on this. So we had the app that was built already. So we had a front end of a full stack dev team that we internally funded, that we bootstrapped. And then a huge amount of the money actually went to our work with, not with marketing, but with the design teams. I mean, and that's
Product design, right?
product. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now with the marketing, I can't answer because I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Were you working with three designers at the same time, like on the same product? Or?
Same product, but not at the same time. um,
Okay.
you know, I'm still not sure exactly why we kept doing this. The people that I did that with, they're friends of mine, but none of them had startup experience, and only one other, so there's six of us. One other had any technical experience. They were overly emphasizing the aesthetics, and the user experience was already somewhat intuitive. I think like from the overall like kind of flow of the app itself, but the person who had the biggest investment, who essentially had access to the clientele that we would be launching with. He was, they just didn't want to move forward until it was exactly the way that they saw it in their heads, I guess. And I mean, unfortunately, that's never going to happen, right? Like I mean, so we at different stages over a 3 month, 3 year span, worked with three different designers
Wow, interesting.
and then never released the product.
I saw that happen. So if that makes you feel better, it's not a unique. It's not
It
a unique
doesn't.
experience.
There's a lot of
Wow.
just time, people's time, and time is something you don't get back. So it's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
that's true. That's true. That's true. Yes. Well, but I guess some lessons are more expensive than others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. I want to ask you one last question. I'm particularly interested on your take because you are at the cutting edge of technology, like beyond AI too. And the question is, I'm always concerned about asking this question because I don't know if I won't sleep tonight when I hear the answer. But what do you think is the future of brand design and creative for organizations in the future? Like you're into quantum and a B2B focused enterprise, very technical. I'm very, very curious about your take on this question.
So as far as how it will adapt to, I guess, technologies, or
Yes,
how?
yes. How do you see, well, within your organization, the future 5, 10 years, and so more in general in the future, and maybe when quantum computing will be a commodity, what do you think will be the future of creativity then? Creativity, brand design, what will be the function, and what would that look like?
That's tough. Um, that's very that's a that's a great question. I don't know if I'm the right person to answer it. Uh, you know, um, what quantum computing, what it promises is a means of understanding the world better by simulating systems on their natural playground, in their natural settings. So how they kind of operate, and you're able to harness computation in such a way that the computer itself behaves in a way that the system that you're looking at behaves, giving you a deeper insight into nature itself. As far as how the interplay with branding or brands and design goes, I think that it goes as it did prior to this. I think with AI tools, maybe people think that you can design let's just go for a logo, and just have some tool do it. I think the human component is the one constant, everlasting kind of thing that we tend to forget about when we look into the future, and the interaction between, or interfacing between, the human, the design of a component of a product or of a company's identity, whatever it may be. It's that interplay, I think, is not going to change much. I think the tools might change on how the organizations and the designers work together, and the tools that are at their disposal. But I don't think quantum itself is going to really impact as far as that relationship goes itself. I think in order for a business to be successful and to portray themselves in a way that they want the public to see them, I think you need that deep kind of human psychological understanding that brand experts and design experts offer. And I think, again, that's going to be the one constant. Again, the interfacing probably inevitably will change, but that's how I'll answer that. I mean, I don't know how else. Maybe someone much smarter than me could answer it in a better way, or who knows more about both fields. But yeah, that's how I think I'd like to answer that. I hope it answered your question.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, cool. On this, I'm ready to wrap up. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we?
I know. I really appreciate this conversation. I think it's a very unique kind of concept. Bridging the founders in tech or whatever it may be, and those that are getting their messaging to the masses, right? Because that's what ultimately the people on your side are doing, and doing that in an effective way, and seeing how 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 they work together is extremely valuable and I think very much underappreciated. I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for saying it. It is very valuable to me. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet me and share your story and insights. And maybe we'll do this again soon.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.